presentation on IZOF and the individual zones of optimal functioning. So we're really talking about here the idea of optimal arousal, okay? But bear in mind that the kind of theories that we're going to have a look at relate to a concept of IZOF. IZOF being the individual zone of optimal functioning. Let's actually write that in. The individual meaning that it's obviously specific and different for different people. Zone of optimal functioning. So we're kind of interested in how can we get our best sporting performance from the most relevant level of arousal for us. Okay, so that means it's for us, it's individual, it's a zone of optimal functioning based on how aroused we actually are within our performances. And kind of unusually for me, I'm gonna sort of illustrate this before I actually explain it to you in real detail. We're gonna have a look at 3 different scenarios. So we're gonna have scenario A, we're gonna have a look at scenario B, and we're gonna have a look at scenario C. And each of these scenarios are represented by a very simple kind of channel like this. So we'll just kind of sketch these in. Excuse them being a little bit kind of scruffy, but obviously we're just trying to represent these ideas. If you want to put these into your notes, feel free to do it with very straight lines and rulers and all that kind of stuff. So what we've got here is we've got the idea of arousal. So as we go in that direction, okay, we're getting increasing arousal. So you need to understand that. So on the horizontal axis, we've got increasing arousal. And what we're basically saying is that we can chunk up this area into these concepts. In example A, what we've got here is we've got in here a notion of under arousal. Okay, under arousal. Whereas in the next little block, we've got the idea of what we would describe as IZOF, which of course is what I just mentioned to you a moment ago. And in the last block, we've got the idea of over arousal. Over arousal. So for performer A, and each letter represents a different performer, we can see with performer A that they're going to perform best at relatively low arousal levels. Okay, so if they keep themselves calm, very controlled, not too agitated, very little kind of cognitive and somatic anxiety, they're going to perform better, right? Because it's their zone of optimal functioning or optimal performance. Whereas if we look at our second performer, what we've got here is we've got a big chunk of under arousal. So this is kind of saying that this performer is going to be under aroused at the same levels as performer A was experiencing the IZOF state. We've then got an idea that IZOF then sort of pops in at kind of, what's meant to be pink, it pops in at sort of moderate arousal levels, and that any sort of high arousal is going to cause over arousal. Okay, so performance for this performer is going to take